I think the last time we saw each other, SCE had just done a large deal for storage at one of our substations. So you were kind enough to host me at SpaceX. A great conversation, but I have to admit it was pretty cool sitting on that mezzanine cafeteria looking under the rocket fab. So thank you for that. Well, a lot has happened at Tesla over the last few years, and you've gone from delivering 50,000. 50,000 cars in 2015, more than 1.3 million cars last year. That's a whole lot of growth. And so you look back over these last 8 years since we chatted with you last. Is faster or slower adoption than you expected? Any big surprises that you weren't expecting?
Well, it's actually gone reasonably close to what I thought would happen, which is from that point, roughly a 50% year-over-year compound annual growth, which is compliments the Tesla team. It's the fastest growing large manufactured object ever. Which I think the second is like the Model T back in the day. So about 100 years ago. So the Tesla team, I'm very proud to work with them. They've executed incredibly well. And we anticipate something close to 50% growth to continue. So that is very exciting. And it means that we should expect electrification of transport, especially passenger vehicles, quite quickly. Because the normal human instinct is to extrapolate on a linear basis. But really, if you look at the curves, electric vehicles are growing exponentially. So I think that's great news for those in the room. You have a lot of customers. You have a lot of EV customers ready, and soon you'll have many more. Forgive me for waxing on a little bit here, but I sometimes ask, well, when will EVs be most of the cars? The important thing to remember is that you've got 2 billion cars and trucks out there. So, and about 100 million per year new vehicle production, which kind of makes sense. There's sort of a life of about 20 years before a vehicle finally goes to the scrapyard. So even if 100% of electric vehicles were, our new vehicle production was electric today, it would still take 20 years to replace the fleet. So just important to bear that in mind. Percentage of new vehicle production versus total fleet. But I think we're moving quickly to the point where probably half of all new vehicles made will be electric. And I think that's likely to happen, I think, before the end of this decade. But then there's still, call it another 20 years beyond that before the fleet really becomes majority EV. So.
Yeah, and it's interesting because as we've done the analysis for California, right, we have an executive order that calls for all new vehicle sales being zero emission by 2035. That's in line with the forecast that we've had in our own scenario analysis. That still puts us at about 3/4 of passenger vehicles being electric in 2045 when the state gets to net zero. I could be off by a little bit, but.
I think the larger point is that demand for electricity is going to be extremely high.
Yeah.
So I hope this is good news. If you just do the rough back of the envelope math, you need to roughly triple electricity to get to a fully electric economy. Roughly a third of power is electric, and then these are very rough numbers. Roughly a third is spent in transportation of various kinds with fossil fuels or hydrocarbons, and then roughly a third is heating. So even assuming the sort of current economic usage, electricity per capita being constant, you're looking at roughly a tripling of electricity demand. And so it's really going to take a tremendous effort to address this demand. This is very, very good news for those producing electricity, but also entails a tremendous amount of work ahead in new production capacity and production capacity that is as sustainable as possible.
Well, in fact, it requires a whole system to be ramping up. It's you are dealing with the storage side and the vehicle side and the charging side, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a bit.
Yeah.
We have the wires, but we need support from all across the economy. Right?
Absolutely, it's really very much a joint effort. I think it's a very positive future for the producers and distributors of electricity. Really couldn't ask for a better, a growing market that's going to grow in a better way than this. But it is a tremendous amount of hard work, as everyone here knows, to actually put that generation in place and then transport it to where it gets used, and then dealing with the peaks and then taking advantage of the valleys of power production. I mean, that's really where, like the Tesla Megapack that you're just alluding to, is actually incredibly helpful. Is in sort of peak shaving the grid, basically charging up when you have excess power production, and then releasing it when you have insufficient power production where you want to peak shave. It's I really believe that stationary battery packs are absolutely the way to go, it is actually the fastest growing portion of the entire Tesla business. So our vehicles are growing 50% a year, but our stationary storage is growing at 200 to 300% a year. So it's really, it's a really big deal and can be really helpful. It's just obviously it's a battery at scale, and it buffers electricity. If you need electricity buffered, then that's a good product.
Well, and we'll get back to the electric vehicle side in a minute, but I remember when you and I spoke a number of years ago, you already had that vision of global electrification.
Yeah.
And I think you've positioned your company, right, with storage piece, with solar, so this integrated view of where the market is going and how Tesla fits into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's fundamentally three pillars to a sustainable energy future. One is sustainable energy generation, which is solar, wind, hydro. I'm actually, a fan of nuclear, good old fission. I think it's underrated.
I agree.
I mean, we could easily supply all of the world's electricity with fission, but people, I don't know, sometimes their understanding of physics is not amazing, and so they get scared of things they shouldn't be scared of. So I'm very much pro. Anyway, it's basically any electricity where you can say, okay, this is not going to meaningfully change the chemistry of the climate and oceans, the atmosphere and oceans. And so, anyway, so you've got sustainable electricity generation on one side, then you've got stationary batteries as the second pillar, which is needed for any kind of intermittent electricity production. And by its nature, solar and wind are intermittent. So batteries and solar and wind go together extremely well. And then the third pillar is electric transport. So get all three of those pillars going, and we have a sustainable future as long as the sun shines and the wind blows, which is going to be a long time.
Well, I think this idea of having a balance across these resources, it takes a lot of tools in the toolbox. Let me get back to electric vehicles, though, because I'd love to go a couple levels deeper here.
Sure.
We're talking a few minutes ago. I think that was more on passenger vehicles. But let's talk a bit about bigger ones. So, we're all excited to see the first Tesla semi-trucks on the road in California. And that means a lot in terms of the viability of trucking systems in the future. You also have the US EPA, proposed vehicle standards that could accelerate the medium and heavy duty electrification. You have California doing its thing as well as a number of other states. But ultimately, the vehicles need to be economical for fleet operators, and particularly in Southern California, where we have all the traffic coming up from the ports. A lot of those truck operators are not big fleets, right? They're small mom and pop owners. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So how quickly are you thinking that freight movement really goes electric and in a way that's affordable, so that you can really serve that mix of owners out there?
Yeah, well, I think I'd certainly encourage people to look at our semi-truck presentations, because in fact, one of the things we emphasize with an electric semi-truck is that it's much more energy efficient than a diesel truck. So, and I mean, you get things like regenerative braking. So, like, let's say you're going over a mountain range. Well, in a diesel truck, you actually don't capture that the energy of height or potential energy. You have to actually spend a lot of money on expensive brakes going down the other side, so you don't run out of control. So whereas an electric semi-truck, is able to recapture the energy, the gravitational potential energy, and actually, when it goes down the other side, does not overheat the brakes, and in fact puts the energy back in the pack. Mm-hmm. So things like that are incredibly helpful for energy efficiency. And then just generally, if you look at the entire chain from electricity production to take into account the efficiency of the energy produced, the energy lost during transmission, energy lost during charging, and then see how many miles were driven. You could take the same diesel that is used to power a truck, use it and burn it as electricity, and still be at least 50 to 100% better with an electric semi-truck than if you put that diesel directly in the truck.
Mm-hmm. Frankly, that's in line. We were talking earlier in our board meeting about just the efficiency of electric. It's efficiency of electric technologies, right? Yes. So it's a big part of the story here.
Yeah, just fundamentally, combustion engines in a vehicle are constrained in mass and volume. Mm-hmm. So you're therefore limited in how much useful energy you can extract from a fuel when you have a very constrained mass and volume for the truck, whereas a power plant does not have the constraints of mass and volume. It can be heavier and bigger, obviously, and you can take the waste heat and run a steam turbine. Mm-hmm. So your sort of Carnot efficiency of a power plant is dramatically greater than if it's burned in a mobile application like a vehicle. Mm-hmm. And even when taking into account transmission losses and charging losses, they still don't account for the massive difference in efficiency of even of hydrocarbons being burnt at a power plant versus being used in a car.
Yeah, which sets up thinking about, well, what's a transition there? But ultimately, though, we're looking at a future that's electric. So we all agree on the efficiency of the trucks. Let me state something that's plainly obvious: bigger and more trucks, bigger and more batteries, right? So let's talk about the supply chain for batteries. And I want to say thank you, because a number of the folks here were able to get a tour of the Gigafactory here in Austin.
Yes, and actually I apologize, I didn't properly answer your question with respect to trucks, because so semi-trucks, because they do use a large battery, mm-hmm. will be later than other vehicles, because we need to have sufficient battery supply in order to have a battery that's maybe 4 or 5 times larger than it would be in a passenger car, have that be in a semi-truck. That's the reason why we haven't gone to scale production of semi-truck yet, is because there just weren't enough batteries. Mm-hmm. Now, as the battery problem is solved, we will go to volume production with the semi-truck, and I'm pretty sure Tesla will be first on this, but we're expecting to reach volume production probably sometime end of next year is what we're aiming for. And again, it's not going to be overnight all the trucks become electric, because you have to reach a certain percentage of new semi-trucks built, then replace the fleet. The fleet is at least 10 years old in the semi-truck case. And so, but I think it probably gets to 50% of new semi-trucks built within probably 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years. And then it's another 10, 15 years before you see most trucks be electric. So that's, I don't know, depending on your perspective, that's either really soon or far away.
Or a little bit of both, right?
Yeah.
So that helps get a sense of the time scale here. I'll make it one level deeper, though, and when you think about the actual underlying challenges in getting that battery scale. Again, a Gigafactory here seems like it's a great advancement in terms of the manufacturing side. Yeah. But then how do you think about the supply chain behind that, the rare earth materials? Are you thinking about different chemistries over time, or other ways to make sure you're getting the supply of batteries you need for that kind of scale growth?
Yeah, so the raw materials are not really an issue here, especially when you consider iron-based cathodes. So we think probably most of the batteries made will be with an iron cathode. Iron is extremely common. Mm-hmm. It's actually the most common element on Earth by mass is iron. Mm-hmm. Second is oxygen. Everything else is in the remaining roughly 38%. So we have more iron there. We're basically a rusty bowl. That's what Earth is. Iron oxide, iron and oxygen. Iron and oxygen and some silicon and a few other things. But it's funny that Earth is by mass almost 2/3 iron and oxygen.
Yeah.
So we're not going to run out of iron, that's for sure.
Right.
And especially for stationary storage, where mass and volume are not that important, an iron-based lithium-ion cell. So the thing about lithium-ion cells is like there's a lot of talk of lithium, but actually the lithium is like the salt on the salad. It's not the salad itself.
Mm-hmm.
So the costs tend to predominate, and certainly the mass of the pack predominates in the cathode, which is it's going to be a metal, and the higher energy chemistries tend to be nickel, and then the lower energy density chemistry will be iron. So you'd use nickel for kind of long range stuff where mass and volume really matter, and you'd use iron where it's less important. So medium range cars, stationary storage, iron, long range cars and aircraft would definitely be nickel.
Interesting.
So,
well, let's talk about how we actually charge all those batteries. And again, back in 2015, you described the need for fast charging to help long distance travel work, even as most of the charging we think ends up happening at home. So you built the Supercharger network. I think it's still the benchmark in terms of public EV charging out there. You've made some really big announcements recently. It's been fun to watch with Ford and more recently with GM. Just curious, why are you opening up the network? How do you see this creating competitive advantage and working with others?
Well, I don't know if it is a competitive advantage, but it might be actually competitive disadvantage. But the purpose of Tesla from the beginning has been to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy, and so and I've been very clear with that. Even when we went IPO, I said, hey, look, some of the things we do may not be, super profit maximizing, so don't invest if that's a problem. I encourage people to sell their stock if that's a problem. On the other hand, we'll make up for it with some epic products. So I think on balance, we'll do okay. We went public at, I think, roughly just over $1.5 billion. So it's improved since then.
A bit, yeah.
Made some progress. But, some of the things that maybe we could have done that were not totally profit optimizing. I mean, we open sourced all of our patents, so anyone can use our patents, which is pretty unusual.
Yeah.
So, and we mostly do the patents just to stop like patent trolls and people doing blocking actions. So we'll do a patent and then make it open so that because like patents are like a minefield, it's just like you don't want those. You want a clear path to the future of sustainability. And then, as far as opening up our network, I actually don't even know if this is actually, a good thing for Tesla or a bad thing. I mean, I think it's morally right, but it's whether it's financially smart remains to be seen. But it was something that would help the rest of the industry go electric. So we opened it up, and so we don't want to use it as kind of a walled garden or competitive weapon. If it's something that would help advance sustainable energy, we'll do it.
That's a powerful statement about the commitment to sustainability. Thank you. I'm curious, Elon, in taking that step, might it also influence how you think about the evolution of your own charging network? So, for example, I think some of the other charging networks might have higher, voltages for fast charging. Is that something that you think would then lead you to migrate towards that, or do you think you're in the right sweet spot?
Well, it depends on which cars we're talking about here. There's a maximum rate at which you can charge a pack. So, once you exceed that rate, it's not relevant to that particular vehicle. Our latest superchargers will do over 300 kilowatts, I should say. 300 megawatts, that'd be impressive.
We had to go back to some more planning if it's
exactly. It's a big cable or very high voltage. We just crank it up to 1 million volts. Look, it's the same cable.
We'll start working on that.
It's an electricity joke.
Yeah.
So, if you, that I2R heating is can really get you, but you just crank up the voltage. So, at 350 kilowatts, you really are exceeding the rate at which almost any battery can actually charge without damaging the battery. So I think we'll be fine on that front. Our voltage for a long time has been roughly 400 volts, plus minus 30. And with the next generation, we're doubling that to be 800 volts. I mean, it's not as big a gain as it may seem, but it's it's slightly better. So our superchargers will be able to operate at either 400 or 800 volts, and just impedance match to whatever the vehicle is that's wants to be charged.
Right. Well, again, it's a really fascinating move, and it'll be interesting to see how other OEMs approach the Ford and GM announcements.
Yeah, like I said, we're really just trying to do the right thing here, and it's clear with Jim Foley and Mary Barra that we will support GM and Ford cars on equal footing. No special status for Tesla vehicles and that kind of thing. It's got to be fair. So that's our commitment. We'll stick to it.
Sounds like it's in line with making your patents open source, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all of those chargers are going to drive the need for a lot of infrastructure on our side of the grid.
Yes, actually, I can't emphasize enough. We need more electricity. However much electricity you think you need is more than that is needed. I assure you. If you're thinking, should I build this incremental production capacity of electricity? Yes. Definitely.
So you have a room
as fast as possible.
Amen. So you have a room full of folks here. Some of folks are, members of EEI, regulated utility folks. There's suppliers here, vendors. It's a whole community that's needed here to make this happen. We also need the support of government, right? And so it's been exciting to see the IRA funding. We're talking about this earlier today. IRA, IIJA, transformational for the U.S.
Yeah.
But we still need more help, right, in getting permitting and siting reform, for example, to get the steel in the ground.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Like it's man. I mean, we're like practically making construction illegal in this country, and especially in California. I mean, no offense. Like I lived there for a long time, and I still spend a lot of time in California, FYI, and I'm still pro California. Not easy sometimes.
Remember, I am a Californian. Be nice.
No, I mean it's even then you know what I'm talking about. Then.
It's being recorded.
I mean, try getting a permit to redo your kitchen in LA. I mean, it's a friggin' ordeal.
But honestly, you know what? But Elon, that is it is really something we're all dealing with across all states. It's federal permitting. It's state level.
I know. It's like we're just like Gulliver's Travels, and each one of those regulations by themselves maybe not so bad, but it's like you've got 1,000, 10,000 little strings, holding the giant of America down, frankly, from a regulatory standpoint.
So that's one part that we need to solve, and I appreciate Tesla's engagement in policy space, which you've done.
Yeah. There's
another part of this, though, which is the collaboration between utilities and our customers, whether it's Tesla or somebody else. I was out in Barstow, California recently, SCE territory, and I was seeing the upgrades that our team was making to accommodate the large supercharger station. Because Barstow, for those of you who don't know, smack between the drive between LA and Las Vegas, right? So popular spot for charging.
Yeah, I've charged there.
So I think this one was going to open, right following weekend or something.
But some of these superchargers are like major power draw, serious.
Right. Yeah. And so, they are, and that means we need good collaboration. One of the things that EEI has done is reach out to the customer community, whether it's charging companies, whether it's large fleet operators, to get that collaboration. But I'm curious from your perspective, what more do we need to be doing to collaborate better with you and with the OEMs and, with, frankly, your charging competitors? Because we need everybody to get this ecosystem going.
Well, I guess anything we can do to make things go faster would be great. It's obviously it's not all in your hands. There's a lot of permitting and whatnot that has to happen. But I really can't emphasize enough. We're at I think a very exciting juncture for electricity providers, which is that the demand for electricity is going exponential, and will, like I said, roughly triple from where it is today to get to a fully sustainable economy. So I think I would just be cautious about extrapolating from the past, because the future is not like the past. The future is a massive increase in electricity demand. And it's going to take everything we've got to just keep up with it. So I think speed, like just figuring out like, okay, how do we move faster? How do we have faster deployment of electricity? And that's everything matters from generation to transmission to the local substation. And I understand there's like quite a long lead time on like step down transformers. So man, I hope Tesla doesn't have to make those too.
Look forward to it. We need more of them.
Yeah. Well. I mean, my challenge to the Megapack team is like, okay, guys, look, let's try to get it to where you just take the big cables, the power cables, and you just plug them in. You know, no substation. You know, that'd be sweet. You know, you just take the big metal wire and clamp it down here, and you're done.
We might have our engineers talk a little bit about that.
I mean, it's totally doable. You know, if you don't go too crazy on the voltage, it's totally doable. You know, you do start having these like, you know, can't have the wires too close together because of arcing limits and stuff. But generally, like if they look at Megapack deployments, one of the limiting factors is the substation equipment to do voltage step up. You know. And so we're just looking at like, okay, how can we what are all the things that slow us down to getting to a sustainable energy economy? And then we just tackle whatever appears to be the biggest issue. And I think as people know, we also have the sort of consumer side Powerwall, which is obviously it's very tiny compared to the Megapack, but it's also can be very helpful in a neighborhood for balancing power, and having the Powerwalls operate collectively. To smooth out the power in a neighborhood, which we've got working quite well in Australia at this point. And I believe we've got some test efforts in California as well.
No, in fact, we do with SCE, virtual power plant efforts. I think PG&E has some as well. It's a good transition to where I wanted to go next, which is when you think about that interaction with the customer. Right? Now, clearly, we are interacting with the customer. You are as well. It can be through virtual power plants. I'll throw in bidirectional charging into the equation too, right? So you put all these things together. Technology is enabling some different relationships with the customer. What's your vision for how that evolves over the next few years?
Well, like I said, I can't emphasize enough that we're just going to hit constraints on electricity production and transmission en masse across the board. So that's why I'm like, I know obviously it takes time to plan for and permit and build a new power generation plant, but that's why I'm encouraging everyone to start now. I'm not sure what your plans are for future electricity demand, but it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be much higher than what you currently think. Electricity demand is going to be, well, I mean, it necessarily must be 3 times what it is today in order for us to have a sustainable energy future. So that means power plants, transmission. I mean, there's obviously some. I think there's to some degree we can improve the power throughput of some of the lines by jacking up the voltage. You know, may require separating cables a bit more, but and obviously you need the step up, step down transformers.
Different cables too. So we have an area here called the Hub with a number of companies that have different technologies. We had Bill Gates join us yesterday, and with a number of the companies that Breakthrough Energy Ventures is supporting. One of those was a company that's making a cable that can carry a lot more capacity, right? So I agree that all those technologies will be important. By the way, as we do the analysis for California-wide, we do see a future where California gets to net zero in 2045. And it's not quite fully electrified. It's mostly electrified, right? But there's other tools in the toolbox. And that's at least a 60% increase in load, whereas load has been flat for decades now. So it's coming. We agree.
Okay, so I think that's basically it will be much more load than that.
It may be.
Yeah. By like a lot.
We're doing good math in our head here.
It's just everything's going to be electric, and I think the average power usage per person is going to increase a fair bit. I mean, an interesting thing to consider is total power used by humans on average over time. And you say, like, you go from not that long ago when the best we could do was kind of make a campfire. So you say, and I'm talking like electricity and thermal energy per human was extremely tiny if you even go back 200 years. We literally had to, burn wood or coal locally to gain heat. There was no electricity. And even if you take all the steam engines and everything and divide that by total number of humans, power usage per human, thermal, electrical, or otherwise, was minuscule 200 years ago, and even less 300 years ago. Now it is incredibly high, and it is rising. And this is, and you're going to see, I think, a lot of electricity usage by the sort of neural net data centers as well. Those are heavy power draws. In fact, I think one of the scaling constraints for AI is going to be power availability. That they are quite power hungry. So you've got basically average energy usage per person increasing dramatically, and a transition from burning hydrocarbons to things that are more sustainable. Anyways, the point is it's going to be 3x current, and I think that 3x number is probably happens around 2045-ish. This is the thing about exponential growth is it really is counterintuitive, and actually exponentials tend to be kind of sort of underestimated. Just
there's a long tradition of that. It's cell phones, other technologies that humans have not been able to see escalating. This brings up a different question area around some of the other places where electrification is going to play a role. So we spent a long time talking about cars, but building electrification may be another important tool to help reduce emissions over time. Again, California, different from other states, but we think that we're going to see something like 30% of all buildings needing heat pumps to get to the 2030 targets that the state has, 90% by 2045. How much focus are you putting on the building side of electrification right now, and is that a place where you think Tesla might go?
Well, I mean, we have the Powerwall, but that's somewhat more of a
supports it.
Yeah, that's like for homes and small businesses. It's Powerwall. We would certainly appreciate support from utilities with bringing Powerwalls online. And one of the selling points of a Powerwall is to give the homes like some amount of protection against brownout, blackout type of thing. But sometimes we do get some pushback from utilities about enabling a sort of cutoff switch, because if you don't cut off power to the grid, if the grid loses power, then it's pointless. You just end up, say, if you end up pushing electricity back onto the grid, and it's kind of pointless. It doesn't work. So we would appreciate some support in approving and installing the backup switch, which really just enables homeowners to have power if for whatever reason there's the grid's down for some reason. So that would be most appreciated.
And we'll continue to engage in that. Also, from the utility side, want to make sure we're managing safety, reliability issues, but it's making sure we're understanding the technology and engaging with your team to work through to the details.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it can be pretty helpful. And then, like I said, the Powerwalls, operating collectively can help to stabilize the grid in a particular neighborhood. I do think like local power generation, basically rooftop solar, and with an accompanying battery pack is a helpful part of solving the energy problem, because there's a lot of neighborhoods where it's hard to get incremental power to that neighborhood, because you need like more substations, you need more, overhead wires, and then in a lot of places that can be extremely difficult to achieve, because just from opposition from people not wanting additional electricity wires overhead and not wanting to expand substations. So it's sort of a solution to this is where local solar and local storage helps alleviate some very thorny situations where you just can't. It's extremely difficult to get more power to that neighborhood. So a little bit of local power generation is pretty helpful.
In fact, when we do our analysis for California, we see the state needing to add something like 80 gigawatts of bulk power renewables and 30 gigawatts of bulk power storage. But we're also counting on 30 gigawatts of distributed renewables and 10 gigs of distributed storage. So
okay, great.
We see we need all the tools in the toolbox for what's coming ahead.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, one other touch point you've had with our sector has been the work that you're doing here in Texas, where, as I understand it, you announced an energy retail business with a subscription program, right? That allows Powerwall customers to, I think it's a $30 monthly flat fee.
I mean, we're trying different experiments.
Yeah.
So we don't know what actually makes sense, but we're trying different experiments to see what might work. So yeah, for sure, trying to figure out can Powerwalls all working together help stabilize the grid, which they can. We've actually done that many times now. And then, of course, our Megapack, which is great at the sort of utility or heavy industry level. It seems just trying to, like I said, help foster a sustainable energy future, and it's going to take many different technology solutions in different arenas to solve this kind of tripling of electricity demand and provision problem.
Well, let me shift topics a little bit. And you mentioned AI earlier in the context of being one of those drivers of electricity load increases. But you've also been pretty outspoken about both the potential and the risks of AI. I think a number of us are moving really quickly right now with use cases on how we use it. I'll give you one example. At Edison, last year, we did almost 200,000 asset inspections in high wildfire risk areas using drones, generating terabytes of data, great ability to capture images all around. There's no way humans could process all those images, so we've been using an AI-enabled tool to down-select the images that we're going to look at. We're looking at other use cases right now, but we recognize there's risk too. So I'd love your thoughts about, broadly across industry, and then if you think about our sector, how should we be thinking about AI from your perspective and both the opportunities and the risks there?
Well, I mean, I've had many sleepless nights thinking about AI. Mm-hmm. I am worried about AI on the downside. Mm-hmm. AI is just it's sort of a technology like nuclear. It's extremely powerful, but it could get out of hand. And so I have been struggling with this question for a long time of what to do to mitigate AI existential risk. And I've been a big proponent actually of regulation, of at least having some oversight by the government, acting as kind of a referee to make sure that AI companies don't go do super dangerous things, and nobody's even watching them, or there's no sort of agent of the public, which is really, regulation when it's done right is they're trying to oversee the good of the public, and make sure that companies don't kind of cut corners or break rules or do things that would endanger the public. Mm-hmm. And this is the origin of the FAA and NHTSA and the various regulatory organizations that exist. And now those regulatory agencies only came into being after a lot of people died. A lot of things went wrong. Mm-hmm. So with AI, I don't think we can afford the luxury of waiting until it goes wrong. So I think we need to be preemptive on this front. So I've had a number of conversations with world leaders, including very senior people in China and around the world, Europe. I'm actually heading to Europe tomorrow to have some AI safety conversations with some of the country leaders there. Is because I think this is the kind of thing where the world needs to work together on AI safety. It's a really big deal. I can't emphasize this enough. I was somewhat encouraged by China's willingness to engage in AI regulation. And I did point out that if you get some digital superintelligence, it might be in charge of China instead of you. And I'm not sure you would like that. That argument seemed to resonate.
Well, since you're bringing up China, and you're very active there, also active with government leaders. A little off script here, but as you think about U.S.-China relationship and how helps navigate or hurts, and as we try to navigate, whether it's AI, whether it's frankly competitiveness for your products, both in the U.S. and Chinese markets. How are you thinking about how that evolves, and what's the end game here in terms of being able to work at both markets?
I don't know what the end game is, but I can say the mid game is going to be spicy.
Have you, with your operations in China, do you feel like you've enjoyed good support, and are you comfortable with intellectual property?
Yeah, we've actually gotten very good support in China. Tesla has the only fully foreign-owned car factory in China, and we do very well in the domestic market in China. And our Shanghai factory is our highest performing factory globally. So it's a very impressive team that Tesla has in China, and the work ethic there is incredible. It's going to be an interesting future. We are entering a phase where the U.S. will not be the biggest economy in the world. And there's nobody alive today who can remember when the United States was not the biggest economy in the world. So it's going to be a little probably discomforting at first to a lot of people to have China be probably 2 or 3 times the size of the U.S. economy. So it's already higher than the industrial output. Manufactured output is already significantly higher than the U.S., and that will increase.
And they've had a significant investment focus in electric vehicles.
Yes. China is actually, of any large country, the most forward-leaning with sustainable energy. So they have massive solar projects, wind projects, and have done the most with respect to electric vehicles of any large country. Of smaller countries, Norway is the leader, but for any very large economy, China is by far the most forward-leaning for sustainability.
Well, let me pull up from Tesla, and you do have a few other places where you spend your time.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned in introducing you, but SpaceX, Twitter, Boring Company, Neuralink, which is really exciting. I saw you had some approvals recently.
We're offering free brain chipping as you leave the conference.
Can I suggest a few folks to go first?
Sit right here. You won't feel a thing.
Joking aside, you're making a personal choice to spend time across these. Is there a common thread in terms of mission across all of these? And what excites you most about your portfolio?
Well, I mean, the aspiration with these various things is to maximize the probability that the future is good for civilization. So it's the future is just a set of probabilities. Like, we don't know, for sure what's going to happen. But to the degree we can shift the probabilities towards a positive future for civilization, I think we want to do that. To me, this is really just, if you're sort of long-term thinker at all, this is naturally what one should want to do, because, how can we really exist in the absence of civilization? I mean, you can see what it's like. Just watch, Naked and Afraid. That's when you don't have civilization. It's civilization pretty great. So I think we want to keep it going, and keep advancing civilization. So I think we should try to expand the scope and scale of consciousness such that we are better able to understand the universe and our place in it. So I would call, my philosophy a philosophy of curiosity. And while we will all die as individuals, civilization can continue, in theory, for a very, very long time, millions of years or more. So we should try to make sure that happens. So these various things that I'm doing are trying to shift the probability of the future being good. Now, I hope it may turn out that some of these things, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So hopefully, those good intentions do not translate to something bad. But I think the road to hell is mostly paved by bad intentions. And, once in a while, there's a good intention paving stone in there. But the intent is to maximize the probability the future is good for civilization. So in the case of, say, Neuralink, it's like, well, how does that affect things? It's like, well, if we are to link the sort of the path of the AI to human will, then what could act to impair that linkage? And we're getting pretty esoteric here, but one of the issues is the bandwidth between your cortex and your computer or your AI, the AI extension of yourself. And if that bandwidth is too low, then the computer will simply be bored. You will, as the bandwidth gets very low, you effectively have a very thin straw between yourself and the AI extension of yourself. Now we're already cyborgs when you think about the fact that your phone and your computer are an extension of yourself. Mm-hmm. And probably, I think most people, if you forget your phone somewhere, it's like having missing limb syndrome, and then you're like sort of patting your pockets, and it's like the phone is basically an extension of yourself.
Starting with, you don't know anybody's phone number anymore.
Yes, right. Exactly. I had this like nightmare, like where I was stuck at a party and someone else had taken my phone, and so I had their phone but I couldn't use it, and then they were like, "So, who should we call?" I'm like, "I don't know anyone's number."
So Neuralink.
So you don't even know who to call. How do you? This must happen a lot. It's like you don't know anyone's number, and they've got your phone, and you can't call whatever an Uber or anything, and you're just stuck.
So I like that idea of increasing the bandwidth between the computer assistant and the brain, but apparently we also need a safety lock to make sure we don't lose the computer in the process. Elon, this has been terrific, and I hope that it's not another 8 years before we see you here. Appreciate all the efforts you have, and frankly, the sentiment you provided around trying to improve humanity and recognizing that the collaboration that we have between our sector and your company is critical to helping humanity deal with climate. So thank you so much for your doing, and please know we're all stand ready to continue to partner to make this transition a real thing.
Sounds good.
Everybody, let's thank Elon very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
And thank you so much.
Athletic Greens AG1 has given me a massive, meaningful boost in energy, allowing me to do a lot more every day, including using my brain more and using my body more. I highly recommend you guys and girls check it out. Athletic Greens AG1 is an excellent way to fill in nutritional gaps. It's got 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, and whole food source nutrients, plus prebiotics and probiotics and digestive enzymes and adaptogens to help you deal with stress. Plus, if you click the link in the pinned comment or head to drinkag1.com/SMR, you can get yourself a 1-year free supply of vitamin D3 and K2. But don't take my word for it. Here's what some of you guys and girls have to say. AG1 has changed my life. I was, as you described, treating myself like a circus, ate like trash, rarely exercised, used alcohol as a stress crutch, cannabis also. AG1 is what gave me the kick in the ass, got me back to the gym, motivated me to do more for myself, family, my business, etc. Keep doing what you do. Now, I know there's some skeptics, the same kind of people who think Elon Musk is a fraud, reading this going, "What do you thought? There's no way that's possible, bro. It must be a placebo effect." Believe it or not, this is a recurring theme. If you give your body everything it needs to feel and perform its best, including having a lot more energy, you'll need ways to use that energy. For me personally, that includes more exercise, moving my body more social activity, and more cognitively demanding tasks, including producing a ton of exclusive content over on Twitter and on Patreon, plus my daily YouTube uploads. The proof's in the pudding. On to another testimonial from a viewer of this channel. SMR, you asked me to provide feedback on AG1. Here it is. It has helped with mental acuity, stamina, and intestinal waste management. Can't read between the lines. It certainly helps with regularity and digestion. That's what the digestive enzymes are for. It has also dramatically reduced my cravings for sugar. You guys need to stop eating sugar. It's fucking poison. I'm 50, 5'9", and overweight, aka a fat motherfucker. I think that's a technical term for overweight, isn't it? Is it fat motherfucker or obese? I can't remember. I average 100 hours a week in the West Texas oil fields as a safety supervisor. Jesus Christ, dude. No wonder you're struggling to keep your weight under control. 100 hours a week. Brutal. It has helped me lose weight. It is not an appetite suppressant. It can help fat people suppress cravings, and motivation to be healthier is critical for changing your diet. Love you, brother. Again, this is a great point and something people really don't seem to grasp. If you have more energy, everything becomes easier. It's like turning on easy mode for life. A few years ago, before I was taking AG1, my health was trash. I was struggling to get through the day, had afternoon fatigue. The last thing I wanted to do was either use my brain or move my body. Didn't have the energy. Now, my biggest struggle every day is figuring out ways to use that energy. I'm exercising way more, doing a lot more with my friends and family, and of course, my work output has increased substantially. And you can fact check me. Check out the average length of my videos I was posting to YouTube 3 years ago. Need I say more? And one final testimonial, love this one. Okay, here's the deal for me with this AG1 shit. I'm 41 years old and not the type to eat, drink, smoke, or sleep healthy, so I was skeptical. That being said, here's what I experienced. Day 1, meh. Day 2, afternoon fatigue was about 45 minutes late. Day 3, 0 afternoon fatigue. Day 4, 0 afternoon fatigue plus extra energy. Day 5, again, 0 afternoon fatigue plus energy, wondering, what the fuck, really? See, this is the thing, right? The results for many people are just almost too good to be true. This is the same experience I had. My afternoon fatigue just vanished out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what the fuck? Why am I not tired in the afternoons anymore? Surely, it's not that AG1 shit, is it? Turns out it was. Day 6 and 7, same thing. Day 8, same thing. Plus, I had the want to get things done around the house that I normally would slack off and not get done. Again, the point, extra energy, you'll need to use it, you'll find ways to use it. Day 9, 10, and 11, and today is day 12. I fucking love it. So however you managed to get me to buy it, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much, SMR. It really changed me so far. Guys, this shit really works. Just try it. By the way, this is the reason I continue to relentlessly promote AG1. A lot of people get real fucking mad in the comments. Oh my God, snake oil salmon's sold out. Oh my God, he's a scammer. This is fraud. But constantly, I'm pretty sure everyone making these comments is also currently short Tesla stock. I'm not particularly concerned about people having a negative perception, those folks suffering from small brain syndrome, still living in my bum's basement syndrome, etc., writing mean comments, claiming AG1's a scam or it doesn't work. I mean, bro, when I get feedback like this is what keeps me going. And remember, there is a 90-day money-back guarantee. There's nothing to lose here. Just try this stuff for a month, and if you don't get these results, get your money back. See, it's a literal no-brainer. It's an IQ test at this point in time. Testimonial after testimonial after testimonial like this. Get your money back if it doesn't work. Just try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, get your money back. Today's the day. It's finally time. Be like this guy who was a massive skeptic, but finally, after 1,000 promotions in a row, caved in, tried AG1, and has results like this. Head to drinkag1.com/SMR or click the link at the pinned comment, and please, let me know how you're feeling in a few weeks' time. Now, if you'll excuse me, time to put my extra energy to good use. I'll be recording some more exclusive content for Patreon and my Twitter subscribers. So click the links in the pinned comment. See you over on Twitter and or Patreon. And don't forget to grab your AG1. Love ya.